So welcome everyone. So today is our ninth session. So which means that we have completed half of the book, right? There are 16 sessions that we had planned for this book, and we have completed half of the thing. And it has been going on quite great. I mean, lot of things to reflect on, a lot of things to learn from each other, and a lot of things to learn from each other's life journey as well, apart from reading the book. So this has been a great experience, and getting the feedback, especially from the people who are native English speakers, to see that how this translation is appealing to them, and what has been the value that it is bringing. So that is also very heartening. So the last session was done by Kevin, and Kevin was we were doing that chapter about Jeevan ka Swarup, or the true form of Jeevan. So it's essentially, I mean, we have understood that Madhyasth Darshan actually posits that Jeevan is a constitutionally complete atom, or Gathan Poon Parmanu, right? Which basically has inexhaustible strength and power, right? And it is the one that is basically responsible for expressing consciousness, right? And consciousness is something that we see that humans express, right? And we saw that the basic form of consciousness, expression of consciousness, is the sensitivity or sensitiveness, right? Or samvedanshilta, right? Which basically is apart from ability to recognize the senses, it is also ability to think, imagine, visualize, right? So we see that humans have been living in the purview of sensitivity, and thereby developed certain sensibilities also, right? But there is an aspect about self which has remained dormant or enigmatic as well. That is the aspect of conscience. That what is the aspect of what does the conscience mean? So in Madhyasth Darshan, consciousness or chetna, right, uh, is positioned as a combination of two things. Okay, one is the conscience, and second is the sensitivity or sensitiveness. So these two together combine the make for the consciousness. And we, as we say, that we are actually able to express our sensitiveness. By this, we are able to recognize things. We are able to do the mechanics of life. But that alone is not sufficient for our fulfillment. That is alone is not satisfying to us. So there we are actually talking about that. Yes, Jeevan is there, which has the five faculties that it is saying, that man, vritti, chit, buddhi, and atma, of which the man, vritti, and chit, the three aspects, they are responsible for the sensitivity aspect of consciousness, right? And in it also resides the capability of reasoning, visualizing, planning, and also taste and so on. So, but the aspect of conscience that has remained dormant, right? Or has been enigmatic or mysterious. So, Madhyasth Darshan basically uh, talks about that how do we actually awaken these dormant faculties of self, right, which are to do with our conscience, right? And it basically these are essentially the activities of buddhi and atma. The idealism actually said that yes, there is an incorruptible core in us, right? And the problem is that there is a cloud of conditioning on top of it. If we actually remove the conditioning, then our true self will shine through and everything will be okay, right? But here it is saying that it is not so. While there is an incorruptible core, But that incorruptible core actually requires to be activated. It needs to be educated, right? To be able to function. So our conscience is something that needs to be educated, right? To We need to build our conscience. We need to activate our conscience, and then our sensitivity will be in control of the conscience, or we will have the conscience based living, right? In which is called संज्ञानीयता में संवेदनाएं नियंत्रित होती हैं. That means our sensitivity becomes regulated in on the basis of our conscience. So conscience actually takes charge. So this is so we are actually now in this chapter taking a deep dive on what Jeevan is and what its activities are. So today's session we are actually having Kuhu with us, and Kuhu is going to lead us through this session. Um, I shared with you some introduction about Kuhu, but I would like Kuhu to introduce herself and then lead us through this session. Welcome, Kuhu.
Thank you, Bhaiya. Hi, everyone. Hope I'm audible to everyone. Yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
great. So, um, I don't know how do I introduce myself again. I am currently in Nagpur, living here, living with my family, working at the farm, loving life, living life, and I want to thank Rakesh Bhaiya for giving me the opportunity to present here today. Actually, I've done Adhyan at Manav Tirth. I've completed a round of Pathan of all the books, but it's been a while since I went through the literature again, and that I have been like been in touch with it. So this was a good opportunity for me to reconnect again, and in English this time, which is a much more comfortable language for me. So it was definitely interesting to sort of go through everything again, but with maybe a much better understanding for me this time. So again, I mean, I will just try to sort of expand on what Babaji has already written and what you guys have already translated. And I hope that I will able to get some points across based on my little understanding that I have so far of the content. So yeah.
Excellent, Kuhu. I mean, I had met Kuhu a few times at Manav and was really impressed with her simplicity and keenness to understand and to basically have the intuitive understanding of the things, not actually just go by the words, which is what is the intent. The words are to indicate the meaning, not just to be the parrots of the words. But words are important because that is the means for conveying the understanding. So very nice, Kuhu. So I will actually share the screen uh, over here. Hmm.
Okay, so we're going to start reading from page number 104, and we are currently reading the chapter which is the true form of Jeevan. So I'll start now. They say nation and constitution are above everything. The essence of this constitution is power centric rule. What is power centric rule? It is to stop one mistake by making another mistake, stop one crime by committing another crime, and stop one war by waging another war. Some constitutions undertake provision of basic facilities for all. The thought process here is if everyone has money, then they could fight and live. We must struggle to live, they declare. Our identity is only by struggling, which is also their declaration. Is there any truth in such declarations? These declarations are at the root of all lies. All our notions of family, education, business, etc. are based on these lies. In this way, we have become buried under all these lies. Some try to overcome this, while most stayed buried. We need to change education to overcome this situation. We are now ready to evidence the 10 activities of Jivan. Every human has a tactic acceptance of Jeevan's existence, since every human claims to be alive on their own. Still, we don't understand what Jeevan is. What is the purpose of Jeevan? Who studies Jeevan? I have understood the 10 activities of Jeevan, practiced these in living, and these have become evident in me. Let's first become familiar with the names of the 10 activities of Jeevan. The first being Atma. Atma is a part of Jeevan which attains realization and coexistence. I have seen it as the nucleus. It remains active as the nucleus of a constitutionally complete atom. All other activities of Jeevan take place in its first, second, third, and fourth orbits. There are only two activities in the center of Jeevan atom: realization, which is Anubhav, and authenticity, which is Pramanikta, which have been evidenced in me. Buddhi. I have seen two activities: realization, evidence, bodh, and determination or sankalp happening in the first orbit of Jeevan. The determination activity is for evidencing the realization evidence, which is called resoluteness or ritambhara. Third is the chit. The second orbit has two activities: contemplation or chintan and visualization or chitran. Fourth, the vritti. The third orbit has two activities: deliberation, which is also tulan, and analysis, which is vishleshan. The fifth one, man, the fourth orbit has two activities: taste, which is aswadan, and selection, which is chayan. These are all the 10 activities of the Jivan. So here Babaji has sort of outlined. First of all, he's talked about Jivan in the previous pages, about what the Jivan is, what its powers are, being that it's inexhaustible, that it's inquantifiable. He's talked about the activities, the 10 activities that take place in Jivan and their functions. And now he's gone to further expand on what these activities are. And now, as we move forward, he says that thus far, humans have evidenced only 4.5 activities of Jivan, with pleasure, health, and profit perspective of deliberation. They could work based on this perspective in sensorial living. Sensorial living is rooted in the senses of the body, while it is Jivan that makes the senses come alive. Jivan's believing itself to be the body is the root of delusion. Once Jivan believes itself to be the body, then it has to function according to the body. This is the basis of believing. In delusion, there is no knowing in it. What should be there in its place? Jivan should be believed as Jivan, and the body should be believed as body. The evaluation of the body and Jivan naturally happens based on their purpose. When that happens, then living with humane consciousness and living in orderliness takes place. In the absence of this evaluation, disorder in human living is inevitable. Orderliness in human living requires that the evaluation of Jivan is done based on human purpose, and evaluation of the body is done based on its usefulness. The usefulness of the body is for Jivan to evidence its awakening in human tradition. Humans have not created the body. Once the human body gets formed in the womb and the child is born, it is already alive due to Jivan's presence. Upon the birth of a child that is alive, we end up believing that this body itself is Jivan. After a few days, that child also starts believing the same. In this way, the entire human tradition is trapped. In order to come out of this trap, the guardians and parents will have to become wise. So, what Babaji here is trying to say is that there are total 10 activities that are happening in Jivan, which are in the form of Man, Vritti, Chit, Buddhi, and Atma. And each of these five also have two activities within them in a way which Jivan functions. And what happens now is that we currently, as humans, are only have only understood are only actualizing or realizing half of these activities, 4.5 to be specific. And the focus of these activities, these 4.5 activities that we are performing, they are focused on pleasure, on health, and profit. And these factors are those that are directly related to our bodily senses. So this is what he calls sensorial living. So what he's trying to say is basically the 4.5 activities that Jeevan performs are related. We are deriving those factors for our sensory purpose. And the Jeevan is actually the one that makes the senses work. But these are what are related to the body. So now the problem is that we have understood Jeevan as the body, whereas the two are different. Jeevan is a different entity and a body is the different entity. But when we club the two together and sort of misunderstand them both for the same thing, that is when the confusion arises. That is what he is calling the root problem of all causes. And this is called delusion in human beings. This is what he points out as delusion and confusion, which is causing us to, have conflicts within ourselves and with the world. So what he's trying to say is that when we understand Jivan as a different entity and the body as a different entity, as it is supposed to be, then we will naturally sort of understand what each needs, how each functions, what capabilities each have. And in that sense, we will be able to live more harmoniously or in an orderly way. And without this understanding, basically things can get messy. And the basic premise is to recognize that the Jivan and the body is different. They both have different functions. They both have different needs, different capabilities. Once we understand them, we'll be able to sort of fulfill those needs individually for the body as well as for the Jivan. So then he goes on further to elaborate how that when a child's body gets formed in the womb, and a child's body gets formed in a womb, and some Jivan drives it. A Jivan which is already there in nature starts driving the body from the 4th or 5th month of pregnancy. In this way, Jivan and body come together inside the womb itself. Jivan is distinct from the body. This distinction can be understood as follows. No part of the body is in anticipation or expectation of justice, orderliness, or truth. But we expect and anticipate justice, dharma, and truth from every human. Evidencing the 10 activities of Jivan is about these expectations becoming satisfied. So he's quite simply stated here ki, um, or I'll read a bit more further, that Jivan has to be there with the body for it to be alive. Jivan starts evidencing the two activities of man, that are taste or aswadan, and selection, which is chayan, from the infant stage itself. Subsequently, analysis or vishleshan takes place in vritti, but deliberation or tulan happens based on pleasure, health, and profit only. One of the activities of chit is visualization or chitran, which we do anyway. Humans have visualized and accomplished all the objects of their basic and greater needs because of visualization activity. Even after accomplishing these, we could not achieve orderliness. So he has quite simply stated that the reason why we have misunderstood the Jivan and body as one is because of the conditioning we come with the second we are born. So when we see a baby, when it's born as a body, we inherently assume that the soul or the Jivan is the body. And then that conditioning also goes into the child as he grows up, which actually is not true, because when the body is being formed, a different entity, which is Jivan, comes into the body and then starts driving it. So if from birth this distinction is clear, then maybe the child would also be able to see himself in as two different entities, or not just himself as body. And that would sort of go to the root of where all this delusion or where all this confusion starts. And He's also again mentioned that the Jeevan has different needs like justice or orderliness or truth. And these needs can only be fulfilled by the activities that are present in Jeevan. Similarly, the body has different needs like water or air or food, and then those will be fulfilled by something else. But the Jeevan is not responsible for fulfilling the needs of the body, and vice versa. So, quite simply, like to understand this, there's this example that always pops in my head that if there's a car and there's a driver, and your body is the car and the Jeevan or you are the driver, then the car cannot go anywhere without a driver. Similarly, the driver can't go anywhere without a car. So, if you have a body, only then the Jeevan can actually translate all its needs and processes to reach the level of realization and attainment. And without the body, the Jeevan might not be able to do so. Similarly, if you're just using your body for sensory pleasure, then what your Jeevan actually needs will not be fulfilled because you're not using it to its full capacity or capability. There is also something that I recall when I read this, that the first time when I came across this concept, or the first time I actually contemplated on it, we're usually told of ghosts and spirits and souls in a very negative connotation, in a very mysterious connotation, in a way where we always have questions about ghosts and spirits, and we really wonder ki, what it is. Is it really bad? Is it harmful? And there's this sort of fear that surrounds us with it. So when I had first heard कि the soul can't do anything without the body, or the Jeevan can't do anything without the body, and the body is nothing without a Jeevan. So I think something just shattered within me, where it was quite clear to me that if there is some sort of energy, if there is some Jeevan, then it can't possibly physically harm me or do anything without a body. And similarly, if there is a body, then it's not lifeless. There is some Jeevan in it, which is again wanting to do something good and not necessarily bad. So, what Babaji here is trying to say relates to me, because once things are clear the way they are supposed to be, knowing the purpose and function of each, then all these confusions and negative connotations just shatter, and fear, conflicts, confusion, they no longer remain. So this clarity that comes from within, then that is what he's talking about, understanding and knowing that then this is what will take you forward towards becoming wise. So yeah, moving on. Idealism presented good imaginations in many ways. Materialisms and the three obsessions that built it up succeeded in building the tendencies of comfort and accumulation in people through training and education. Still, comfort and accumulation could not become accessible to all. We kept thinking that these accomplishments are owing to our excellence and humaneness, a rightful due of our struggle and exploitation. It is laughable and pitiable at the same time. How could we conclude that we have achieved everything that humans need? How could we conclude that we have studied humans completely? This requires a rethink. The biological sciences only study the structure and functions of the body, but they claim to impart study of human beings. Just think, is it possible to study a human being by dissecting the body and counting the muscles and bones? How will the study of human beings happen by examining eyes, ears, etc., even in a even in a living human? In this way, a bundle of lies has been carried on in human tradition. We haven't studied human beings, yet boast of having done it. We haven't studied existence, but we boast of ruling over it. In this way, the human race is carrying the burden of its own lives. Now, there are only two options: either we free ourselves of it or perish underneath. We are taught that destiny does its own course correction. Also, after humans have done all the excesses they can, nature will create such conditions that human will not even survive on Earth. There is already a lot of clamor about the environment. They are already estimating how many people will survive and how many will perish. Some countries wish that their country should be saved. Some religions wish that their believers The believers of their religion should be saved. They get an imaginary assurance from a belief in the Savior, the mysterious one, whom they refer to by names such as God, Paramatma, God or Goddess, Avatar, Messiah. Such narratives usually talk of followers of a certain faith being saved and all others are doomed. Where are we headed by saying all this? What will happen by such thinking? My view on this matter is that both state and religion are completely lost with respect to education. All the seats of religion do not have any basis of universality or dharma. There is no education, there is no evidence. Where is the dharma? In the same way, in all the seats of state, there is no universal concept of state itself. We need to work to save the state, they declare. What will you do for that? Struggle. Struggle is all about offense, revolt, exploitation, and war. Who prepares the material for struggle? Nature or humans? When this was studied, it was found that humans only prepare material for this struggle due to delusion. The most powerful seats are religion and state. So I think Babaji is trying to take a dig at all of us humans here and trying to make us realize that we are not thinking. And he's pushing for us to think outside of the box that we have been shut under in the name of idealism and materialism. And he's trying to point out how this will only bring comfort and accumulation, and that is not doing anyone any good at the end of the day. And basically, he's pointing out that it's quite simple and it's quite silly to think about ki how can you try and understand something which is abstract through physical tools or physical processes and then trying to just declare that you've understood it without even trying to understand it completely. Just by understanding the body, it doesn't mean that you've understood the jivan as well. So I think that this whole the two giants that he's talked about, religious constitution and government constitutions, these have just fed us with lies, with notions and ideas that promise us well-being, that promise us security, but at the end of the day they are actually just inflicting like conflict, oppression, violence, war, things like that, and we are all falling victims to it. And what he also sort of talks about here is how religions um, will sort of look up to something in the name of truth or in the name of something that will save them. But is this actually true? Is this actually, have they understood it? Have they actually is this just believing or knowing? And yeah, he continues to say, and I will further expand on this after I read this, that these have all the resources and all the power at their command. He's talking about the state and the religions. Both of these have no solutions to offer for the human condition. It is not even worth mentioning the seat of commerce, which is ever ready to exploit for the sake of profit. When the seat of education was asked, they didn't have any guidance or provision for recognizing a definite goal. Now, what should the common man do? One is not going to get any guidance from these seats of religion, state, commerce, or education. Now, the courageous thing to do will be to either discover or construct a new path. The path will be of understanding, honesty, responsibility, and participation. The path of fighting leads to no goal. Humans cannot satisfy their needs by fighting. Still, it is a part of their tradition. Isn't that also a big delusion? Now, the only sensible thing to do is to become wise. The verification of understanding happens in own self by acceptance and study of developed consciousness. You cannot become wise by examining me. You will become wise only when you examine yourself. I kept examining others for 30 years of my life, but I didn't find an iota of understanding anywhere. I found the understanding when I examined myself after sadhana of 25 years. What I have found from this endeavor, I want to offer it to humankind in a form that can be studied. This effort too is a part of that exercise. So I just loved reading this paragraph because at first Babaji is sort of mocking us. I mean, not literally, but he's sort of pointing out the silliness and the stupidity of things that we generally believe. And now he's quite casually offering a hand to help. I've been on the other side, like this is good. So now he's also brought in commerce and education into the picture, and he doesn't even want to talk about it. He knows how hopeless and useless they are, even worse than religion and state. And he's basically trying to look for solutions like we all are. He's trying to offer us solutions, and it feels that way quite a lot of times, that everything that we know of, all the societal notions that we are fed all the time, they do seem like lies to us most times, but we also don't know any other way around it. We also can't think of an alternative, or we also don't see examples of people sort of doing something or experiencing something different to this. And here Babaji is saying that all these paths, they will lead to again conflict and war and violence, but the brave thing to do here is to rise above it all and to find your own way out of it. And he says to find your own way out of it because what he has realized, what he has experienced, has been his own. It's not something that you and I can experience either. He says that understanding, realizing, experiencing comes from own acceptance. It is a very personal journey. It's a very personal thing for me to experience. Looking at someone, learning from, or like living with someone will not do that for me. So he says that if you want to get out of this, web of lies, if you are really looking for that honest life, then you need to find a way out. And I have presented, or I have sort of put these things together, what I have been through, and I'm here to help you. I can, this is what I've put together. You can study this, and based on the study, you form your own experiences, you form your own understanding, your own acceptance, and sort of rise above it. And it's sort of funny. I was thinking about this, that I think this comes a little bit further. I'll read a little bit further and then elaborate. That it must have become indicated to you by now that coexistence itself is the ultimate truth. Living in coexistence itself is our ultimate dharma. If this becomes clear, then all the understanding for it is within your reach. It is very simple. According to me, living a lie is more difficult than truthful living. Truthful living is simpler. I have seen it by living. Living was so difficult when I was surrounded with questions. When I found the resolution, I became free from all the questions, and life became simple. If this seems right to you also, then it will only strengthen my resolve. Those with me have seen it. If you also want to, then you could verify it too. The verification of this proposal begins from deliberation whether our behavior is according to justice. Have we understood the relationships that we are able to fulfill them? Are we able to evaluate and inherit in the inherent values in the relationships? Are we able to reach the point of mutual satisfaction or not? These are all the aspects of verification. As we start this verification, we discover that there is no definiteness in the perspective of pleasure, health, and profit. That which I find pleasant may not be pleasant to you. That which I find healthy may not feel healthy to you. The amount of profit that satisfies you may not be enough for me. All humans are stuck in this trap only. Therefore, the basis of equality cannot be with the perspective of pleasure, health, and profit. So, as I was saying, that, and he very beautifully writes it down, that living a lie is more difficult than truthful living. And I often used to sort of wonder about this. Ki if I can see all the wrong that is happening, if I can see all the lies, as he says, that are around, then why can't everyone? Why is it so hard? Like, why are people still delusional about it? Or why are people so um, um, ignorant about it? And then I realized that it's because they haven't found the truth. They think that living in this world of lies, or living in this, in the current society that we live in, that is the truth. So obviously they're going to live that. But then once you have found something that is better or different or is actually the truth, then it's very hard for you to live with that or to agree or accept with that. No matter how hard you try, you cannot still live with it. You cannot go back to it. You will find your way to just pull yourself through and find different ways to get out of the whole web. And that is something that has been happening with me over the past few years as well. So I relate with it uh, quite well. And when he says that this is, like when your questions are, like when you don't have questions and when things are resolved, then it's much simpler, it's much easier to live life. And I have been feeling that ever since I came across darshan, ever since I met all you people. Things have been easier because a lot of questions have been answered, a lot of clarity has been gained, and that is one step moving towards becoming wise, or getting out of the box, or like shredding yourself of the, of the web that we are all stuck into. And then he says that this is something that can be verified. This is not just all talk. This can be done. I have done it, and it's verified. So how is it verified? That it's done through justice or nyay. And how is that? Is that, are the relationships that we are living in, are we fulfilled with them? Are we satisfied with them? Are the values flowing? Or is it just superficial? And you don't really need a PhD to figure that out. I think it quite naturally happens when you're conversing with someone, when you're being with someone. You just realize that, is this actually something that, that is satisfying me, that is working out for me? So it's not even something that is, it sounds like it's something too different and away from us, but that is not the case, I feel. And then he goes on to talk about how we're all, of course, stuck in this trap. And that is because we are only using four and a half activities that are present in the Jeevan. And those are also based on like health, profit, and pleasure, which is again to do with body. But what we are actually seeking is satisfaction in the relationships, mutual fulfillment, mutual justice. So then how does that happen? So now he's at a point where he's highlighted, he's outlined all the problems that we face. He's relating to us. I can relate to him very much until now. And now I'm excited to see what he comes up with, what solutions he presents. So moving on, this is what he outlines. So, what should be done to become free of this trap? In place of these three perspectives of deliberation, which is pleasure, health, and profit, other three perspectives of deliberation, which is justice, dharma, and truth, are available. As we start deliberation with the perspective of justice, it is called contemplation. Justice is understood only upon recognizing relationships in the sense of orderliness. As a relationship is recognized, fulfillment of values start. The fruition of it is in the form of evaluation and mutual satisfaction. This is called justice. Justice is that which can satisfy both sides in a balanced way. It is not justice if both sides are not satisfied. Someone asked me, what should be done with those who commit crime and wrong? One commits crime and wrong because we have no provision to make them wise. You start making them wise, and they will become free from crime and wrong. Why do we focus on criminals and not on the right persons? For example, I don't commit any crime or wrong. There are many people like me who don't commit any crimes, and we don't have any problems with them. We do evaluation of each other and find mutual satisfaction. How can you overlook and deny that? That is one evidence for you to consider. Now the question arises whether you have a need for this understanding or not. In my view, you need this understanding only and nothing else. All humans are waiting in anticipation of this only. The only difference between you and I is that I took one step forward out of my pain, accomplished the understanding, and have become capable of testifying to it. You will also testify in the same way after understanding that there is so much happiness, so much satisfaction in living with justice. It is not for me alone to testify. You can also do it. All humans will become capable of testifying in the same way after understanding. How beautiful is this? Just gives us a sense of relief that, yeah, you know what? Like one of us has gone out of his way, he's looked for answers, he's been there, and now he's telling us that there is something out there which is even better than what we could have ever imagined. He's showing us the way to it. He's telling us that through relationships, through values is what is how we will reach this. He's providing us a way through that. And then he also says, he asks us, he questions us that do you really need this? And then he throws a ball saying ki, yeah, you do, everyone needs it, there is no one who doesn't need it, which is true, which is why we are fighting for it so much, which is why we're all here on this call as well. So it's quite like, what do you call it, like helpful, or I don't want to use helpful because it's such a light word, but yeah, the way he's suggesting how justice is what will take us forward, mutual understanding, mutual um, uh, uh, values in relationship is what will lead us to this way where um, all harmony and all happy things occur. And it can be testified. He is testifying it because he has been through it. We can all do it too. And then he goes on to ask, then who will impart this understanding? It will be imparted in educational institutions. What is an educational institution? It is a combined expression of all parents and guardians. The education and sanskar needs to happen in the educational institution. Sanskar means understanding, and education is the way of evidencing it. Imparting of education isn't complete without understanding. Educational institutions and all parents and guardians are responsible for imparting the understanding. In this way, every family is connected with education. Therefore, it will not help, nor has it helped in the past, to think about unification, privatization, or nationalization of educational institutions. The guardian should be directly recognized in the form of educational institutions. This alone will prove beneficial for humankind. This is the only design that emerges from understanding. We will need to become proficient in delivering justice for making it happen. So basically, he says, then how will this understanding come? How will we learn about these values and this justice that we're talking about? So quite simply, it will come through our education system. And the current education system that we have is only providing facts. It's only providing skills. It's not imparting the right understanding or the right knowledge of how values flow or what justice is or what truth is. And he also goes on to say that this is actually the job of parents and not just schools. So parents and guardians should also be equally responsible of imparting this knowledge of being kind, or sharing, or just being fair. And this in true sense is sanskar, because it's coming from the parents, it's coming from the people who actually gave birth to you, who are imparting the knowledge and wisdom in you. And the current educational system actually doesn't provide that, which is why all these things are being neglected. Parents are busy doing other things and not actually teaching their uh, children about the things that need to be taught. And this, I mean, when I first heard of Abhibhavak Vidyalaya, which is something that, like people of Madhyasth Darshan have come up with, where parents themselves are teachers, I was taken aback by how simple and effective this whole concept and idea is. Like, um, it is so basic. Like, why has no one thought about this before? Like, parents should be the teachers for kids until, of course, a certain age, and that way they get to impart all the facts, all the skills, as well as the knowledge, values, and sanskar that the kids need. And this, like Babaji has correctly said, that this is what will be beneficial to mankind. This is where the problems from the root cause start getting fixed. And that is how we can move ahead into creating a more orderly or humane society. And I couldn't agree more. So, moving on. I'm also keeping a track of the time a little bit, so I may be rushing a little, but I hope that I'm able to put my points across. So,
Please be relaxed. There is no rush, so please
okay,
take your time.
okay. We will need to evidence ourselves in delivering justice. It is only when we attain these two that we will be able to do justice. And only then we can say that we have understood. Unless we understand, how will we do justice? When even the judges in the high courts don't understand justice, then what can normal people do? Justice is the least that one should have in living. The evidence of justice is in the form of humane conduct. Anything short of humane conduct has no justice at all. More than that is not needed. Jeevan has 6 activities functioning with contemplation or chinta. We have done a great deal of analysis or vislation for pleasure, health, and profit. We have been able to produce a lot of things related to our basic and greater needs. Apart from these, we have also produced things such as bombs, missiles, and warships, which are not useful for humans. These things are meaningless and are causes of destruction. It can be understood by logic and also by seeing the events of history. The usefulness of humans is ascertained existentially, logically, and behaviorally. The usefulness of humans is ascertained existentially, logically, and behaviorally. We want to become happy existentially. As we become happy existentially, we become harmonious in behavior. Logic is the link between these two ends. It is the way we evidence in behavior what we have realized existentially. In this manner, we evidence logically, existentially, and behaviorally. Logic is the basis of all that we have read and all of our conversations. The greatness of communication is when logic touches the meaning of existentiality. My communication is meaningful if existentiality became indicated through it to another person. It is nothing new. Since ancient ages, humans have been communicating with one another. The logic is being used here for indicating the meaningfulness of behavior. That human purpose is resolution, prosperity, fearlessness, and coexistence. If these four became indicated and how if these four become indicated and how these four can be achieved, then it results in behavioral knowledge, which is the way to existential knowledge. Therefore, logic is needed for both existential knowledge and behavioral knowledge. The first accomplishment of this knowledge is we having the basis of our own evaluation and evaluation of our family members. The evaluation will be on the basis of values, relationships, and evidence of mutual satisfaction. We can evidence being judicious in our behavior. It is only then that the human becomes humane. Thereafter, one becomes autonomous based on understanding and attaining the following 6 merits. So, before we move on to what the 6 merits are, I really like this part about logic and communication that Babaji has highlighted. I haven't understood it completely, so I will form that question for Bhaiya in the Q&A session. But this line where he says that the greatness of communication is when logic touches the meaning of existentiality. My communication is meaningful if existentiality became indicated through it to another person. It just sort of breaks and shatters all our notions of small talk and casual conversations. Because usually, like when I'm out with friends or, peers or people, I kind of get bored talking to them about just random things about, the time and the weather and work and whatnot. And I truly, truly, truly enjoy having deeper conversations about, like he points out, the existence or our purpose or relationships. And that is when I truly start feeling fulfilled, or that is when I feel that the conversation is fruitful. And I think that is also what he has highlighted here, that if you are communicating, then it has to be in a way that the existence or the behavioral aspects of life are, sort of being addressed or being talked about. And this also, I think he talks about it later on, that this also sort of shows how humans are always striving towards betterment and improvement. And it is something that is innate within them, because it's also been there for a while, and not just to, again, talk about work and the weather, but just about um sort of translating culture and traditions and knowledge through generations and generations. And that is what the true purpose of communication is. And of course, then that backed up by logic is where you connect it through your behavioral patterns. You try to understand what it is, how you would achieve it through your behavior. And then once you're, sort of getting it through your behavior, then automatically that is in tune with the existence. So that is also something that happens in the exit, like that is some, like you're gaining existential knowledge side by side as well. So he has very beautifully connected logic with behavioral knowledge and existential knowledge, and how like the both are sort of interconnected with each other, and how you will achieve one as soon as you start working on the other. But of course, I would want to gain more clarity on this paragraph in particular.
I don't think I could actually explain it any better. I think you have said it so beautifully that logic is the link between behavior and existential understanding. Right? Whatever we do in the behavior is through, it has to basically be logical. It has to go through the logic. And logic is also used for explaining the reality,
Hmm.
right? So the communication is successful when the logic actually is able to connect uh, with the touches the existentiality, and that is the point where two human beings can come to the same understanding,
Hmm.
right? So beautifully explained. So I don't have anything to add to it. Please go on.
Okay, so moving on to page 116. So now he's talking about um, how once you've accomplished this knowledge of basically doing justice with others, and like having a knowledge of relationships and mutual satisfaction, and then this of course all of that comes into your behavior, then the next step is, or like during that time also, what happens is that these six traits in you, in a human beings, are what come forward. They are self-confidence, respect for excellence, balance in talent, balance in personality, social in behavior, and self-reliant in occupation. So it is upon attaining these six merits that I felt to have become autonomous. Hence, I became capable of evidencing my understanding and prosperity in the family. I am presenting it before you with this truthfulness. Every person must be wanting to become civilized, while the minimum qualification of civility is justice. Justice, as I see it, is relationship, values, evaluation, and mutual satisfaction. After this, I also understood that every human seeks justice from the moment of their birth. They naturally want to work and behave correctly. They naturally speak the truth. On this basis, what should be the content of education? Every human child should have both of truth. They should get practice to do correct work and behavior, and the capability of delivering justice should be instilled in them. All of these three aspects need to be there in an educational institution, which will pave the way for humane tradition on its own. Humane tradition will not happen without this. Humane tradition has to start with justice. The core of justice is in understanding that our relationship with natural surroundings is timeless and our relationship with other humans is continuous. When someone makes a mistake, then where do they go for guidance? First, someone from their family who lives with justice gives guidance. If not from family, then someone in the village gives guidance. If there is nobody to guide in the village also, then they will try looking for someone in their country or the whole earth. It is a natural human tendency. Every human has a natural tendency for reforming themselves somewhere or the other. It has become evident that the world wants a change, but what change they want was not clear so far. This proposal addresses it. Education alone will result in dissemination of this proposal. There should be provision for humane education in the educational institutions. So again, Babaji here is highlighting how understanding um, how understanding of the truth of relationships of justice needs to be instilled right from birth in a child, because that is what we or what a child innately wants, what he fundamentally craves for or desires, and that is what he is looking for. It is through our conditioning and notions that we sort of grow up to sway away from it. But if we are to start right from the beginning, then that is what will take us to a more humane, just, and harmonious society. And that is also what will translate into tradition, into culture, and into the generations that are to come. And and then, of course, he says that this entire proposal is, you know, sort of should translate educationally from the very start, and it is something that um, will pave way for the future generations for them to live with the correct understanding to do justice and mutual justice and like relationship, sorry, I'm a little lost now, with basically with each other, and live in a better world, in a better society than we are today. So I think that is all from me today. Those were my 5 or 6 or something pages so far. I hope I was able to share what I wanted to. There were a few things that I had in mind, but I couldn't put across. That usually happens, I guess. And yeah, I do have a bit more of a casual approach when it comes to sharing and explaining compared to everyone else that I've heard so far. But I hope that I did some justice to what Babaji has written. And over to you, Bhaiya, now.
So amazing, Kuhu. I mean, I think each one of us uh, makes this book and Babaji's darshan alive by speaking. I mean, it is not just the textual content, but when the person actually speaks, there is so much that we learn, not just what is read, but also about the person. So, in this continuation, as the fifth uh, person who is addressing us, we have really learned from all of you. And so, one thing I would really like to hear from you is, I mean, we have seen, we have read about um, that you actually studied at Madhyasth Darshan at one of these. And then after that, you are actually working towards implementing those ideas at this place you are calling Kava. So please tell us something about that. Because one thing that we really like is that the way that you, in a very simple way, translate your understanding in living, right? And that is something that all of us need to actually learn. Sometimes we become too much caught up with the words, and it is what we call is analysis paralysis, right? We too much go on thinking on the things rather than going into implementing something, going into action. So would like to learn from you, what is Kava about, how you found it, and what are you doing there?
So, um, so like you said that like I'm not living any better than you, by the way, just because I'm not able to analyze it as much. But Kava is basically a platform, and this I think comes from within because I, having grown up in cities, having grown up in a very comfortable background and a very comfortable upbringing, um, a lot of things for me weren't there weren't many conflicts in my life, or there weren't many questions or many struggles as such. But yet when I came across the philosophy, I realized that there is so much that I am looking for that I didn't even know about. But just through this I could realize that yes, this is actually what was missing in me that I didn't even know about. And then when I got more and more into it, I realized that if someone like me, if someone who's studied abroad, who's lived a comfortable life, someone who's had no struggles as such, if someone like me can crave for or desire for such knowledge and understanding and such a way of living, then I'm sure that everyone does as well, especially people like me. It's just that we don't have the opportunities or the platforms or the spaces to sort of acknowledge these things, or even to sort of come face to face with these things. So I thought that Kava, which stands for knowledge, adventure, values, and abundance, would be a space for people, for youth especially, to come and just sort of explore what is out there apart from the materialistic life that we're living in, apart from the rat race that we are living in, just to show them that there is a world outside of this. There are thoughts beside of what we generally think, and just get your hands wet in it, just get your feet wet in it and see what works for you. Just knowing that there is some other alternative, just knowing that there are people doing other things might also spark something in someone, which is what happened with me. I wasn't looking for it as such, but when I did find it, I realized that this is what I was missing. So I want to share the same with people um, of my age, of like my friends, my peers, because generally people don't go around looking for it as well. But if there is a space where you're also being entertained while being educated, then that is something that I feel that people might be attracted towards, or at least would want to try out, because darshan in itself is quite intense for a newcomer in a way. And even the Hindi, for example, like I shared, I didn't understand anything for the first two shivirs, or even like when I was doing my pathan. But even Manav, living in Manav Teerth was an intense experience, and I know that not everyone can do it, but everyone has that need, wants to sort of experience something like that. So basically, bridging the gap, the huge gap that exists currently within the urban population and the alternative sort of population that we're all exploring as well. I'm just trying to bridge that gap a little bit so that Kava can be a space where they can come, explore, realize that there is something else, realize that facilities is not basically the be all and end all, and then go to sort of into the more serious study or intense study if they wish to again. So that is what I'm trying to do. And again, like I said, I wanted to be educational, but I wanted to be entertaining as well, because that is what people look for nowadays. No matter how, like, we try to ignore the truth, people will not go if there is no sort of, fun in it in a way. But that is the sort of space I'm trying to create with some workshops, events, communities coming together, living together, things like that. So, it's a long vision, but I'm working on it with my family slowly. So yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, indeed. Basically, one of the things that we all need to actually understand is or be clear about that is living with understanding is not leading a dull and boring life.
Yeah.
There was not a dull moment with Babaji, right? It was always there was a full of joy, and the house would be full of activity. There would be cooking. There would be people coming, and understanding is not something which is about being grim and prim and proper and right with the words and so on. It is about living a full life, realizing our full potential. And I feel that each one of us, in a way, are a bridge for others like us, right? So I think, I mean, I resonate with what you are saying, that we need to uh, I mean, we need to take the understanding in our world and with the people that we are related with
Yeah.
and be honest about it, right? That's the most important thing. So very nice. So I will open this floor for more questions and more discussion here in this room. So please unmute yourself uh, and fire away.
Not too much, please.
Yeah, Drishta, you will need to unmute
Oh,
yourself.
I was just clapping because it was a really nice session. I really like listening to your explanation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was a little nervous about it because you guys have, of course, been doing this for a longer time. You guys have a deeper understanding of it all. But thank you.
Yeah, I
No,
wanted
it
to
was
say the
lovely.
same, Kuhu. I'm meeting you for the first time, and somewhere I resonate with the style that you have because I am like that too. And I thought, okay, someone else, it's. I need to connect the intensity with practical life. In fact, for me, the challenge is that the logic doesn't come very easy. I get one thing, then I want to live it and then connect it. So it takes a lot longer for me to be able to articulate as a thing, and I'm in the process of developing it, that faculty. But I wanted to understand, since that part is missing in me, is that thing about logic. So I haven't understood what is really logic. Right now, I get so scared of it because that faculty is so poorly developed in me that I think sometimes that comes in the way of me bridging this. Uh, it would be nice to know that sequence about understanding logic and living, and what does this logic really mean in the context of understanding and in the context of learning. It's the same paragraph that you were wanting Rakesh Bhai to comment on, and then he said, "You've explained it." Yes, you have explained it, but I still have
Yeah.
that little
Yeah.
gap there,
I
that
think
window.
Bhaiya will be able to address and navigate this much better than me. So, Bhaiya, please.
Yeah, so let me just add a few things. I think we are making too much of logic. Okay. What you are speaking is totally logical. Okay. Uh, it is connecting with behavior. Okay. In our behavior, vyavhar mein, we need to actually do one thing or the other. Okay. And one thing after the another. So this is a logical thing to do, right?
Mm.
So everywhere whatever we do, there is a logic always associated with that in what we speak, in what we do, right? So it is very simple. In cooking, there is a logic. In when somebody comes to our house, there is a logic. In behavior, there is a logic, right? So there is logic in the things that we do, right? That is the way basically humans work and behave. So that it is the underlying thing. That is the reason is the basis of our actions. Okay, it is the underlying thing. Okay. Now comes that, okay, behavior and logic, they are kind of intertwined. There is reason or the logic is one level above behavior. Behavior is what you see in manifested in your actions, and logic is the underlying thing that is there uh, mm, before above behavior. Now we are saying that what is behind the logic? Okay, is there anything that is behind the logic, right? So then comes that, okay, logic, behind the logic is the where the language also stops. Okay, if you see, our language is essentially a logic construct of logic. Like what we are speaking is essentially a thinner thread of logic it is having. Now the question comes that what is behind this language? Okay, and what is the purpose of language in the first place? So there we say that the purpose of language and the logic is to actually arrive at that understanding which can become the basis of logic. Is that becoming clear? Right? So
Yes,
Getting it
understanding is
slowly.
not logic, but it is the
Hmm.
basis of logic. Okay, or the logic can actually touch the understanding, right? So understanding itself is not words. Words are used for expressing the understanding. तो इतना clear हो गया है ना? And that basically gets manifested in our behavior. तो behavior clear है, logic clear है, understanding is something that is behind the logic, जिसको हम कहते हैं मतलब intuitive understanding, which is something that we say that, but we say that we have not been able to trust our intuitions all the time, because our intuitions could be just our biases, it could be something of our habits. So can this intuition be a true basis of our living, है ना? So that is the basic thing that we are trying to actually address. So what Babaji is saying is that our intuition, or the so-called the inner voice or the conscience, is something which has been which we have been talking about it, but it has been enigmatic, it has not been universal. People have been basically saying things about it, but it is not really universal. There needs to be a connection between behavior, logic and understanding, and it got to be universal. Okay, you cannot actually be having this thing left to an individual's own. So, and that is his realization, is that conscience is something that can be, you can actually achieve it by way of education. It is not something that is uh, already there in you. It is there. It is something that can be achieved through education. So he says that what is that essential knowledge that would comprise our, would be the content of our conscience, and can we actually communicate it through logic? Okay, so far in the tradition of idealism, this thing was basically said that you can't actually express it in logic, in words. It is beyond logic, it cannot be expressed, and if you express it in the words, it is not what it is. Right. So here he is saying that through the words, you can actually achieve a direct perception or sakshatkar of the reality. Okay. And thereby he is actually saying that what is perceptible to the senses can come into the logic and can thereby connect to the understanding and realization also. So that is all there is. It's nothing, no very big fundas to it. And he says the content of this essential understanding is actually very simple. There are three pillars of it. One is the understanding of all things are how they are connected as coexistence. Second is the understanding of consciousness, that how does Jeevan actually function? Okay, that. And third is about the humane conduct. That okay, what does it mean when actually one lives with the understanding of coexistence and lives with the understanding of humane consciousness, and what is the manifestation of it? So he says that that is the content of consciousness. And if one actually lives based on this understanding, then logic and behavior actually functions according to that. It is not left to whims and fancies. It becomes rooted in the understanding, and that understanding itself becomes the fountainhead of our happiness. So that is, if you look at it from many points of view, this is what it basically summarizes to, right?
So I'm trying to find what has been my challenge, and I'm understanding that if logic always is what you're saying. And when I read the books or when I come in the place like this and try to understand what's happening, the part that goes missing in me is through words. They just don't register. So I try to take this straight into living. And obviously, you can't take so much into living as much as you can bring into logic. So I'm just thinking that part which is awareness, maybe that's something that needs to be honed in further in me to be able to catch the steps before I take it to behavior. And maybe that's what is missing. And that was another point that I wanted to, while all this content is given to us, I'm noticing in the process of in my own journey and my experience that being aware
Your voice is somehow not coming, Renu Didi. Can't hear you.
is my voice reaching out to you?
Yes, now it is. Now
Okay,
it is
sorry.
back.
So what I was saying that while content is there, but if the faculty of awareness is not equally developed, I notice that it just doesn't go in that much. So I'm connecting this awareness faculty to this logic part. Am I understanding it right?
Yeah, see, basically, we can develop this faculty based on our need. Okay. See, when I basically meet, for example, Amba Didi. Okay. So, I mean, where would you actually place her in terms of her rootedness in understanding, her basically vivek, or I would actually rate her very high, right?
Yeah.
So what is it that basically are we where are we actually placing the understanding and samajh? Are we actually reducing it to logic, or are we actually placing it somewhere else, right? So clearly understanding is not something which is in the words, right? But understanding can be expressed in logic. That's something that we need to actually keep. Second is that living is not words. Okay, somebody basically takes care of her mother or mother-in-law, okay, for years altogether. Do you count that as wisdom, or you don't? You discount it completely? Okay. So basically that it is so where is this thing what are we actually giving more value to? Just basically giving sermons on a in a hall, is that what we are calling as understanding? Or understanding is something that actually comes into the living, right? So I would actually say that we need to see this thing. And I feel that logic is something that we can develop based on our need for it, right? So
Mm.
if we are there for it, I mean, it is always there. Like for example, I see now, I mean, taking the example of Amba Didi only, I see her speaking very confidently now,
Mm. Yeah.
right? So it was her need that, okay, now she feels the need that, yes, I can actually see. So there are understanding is not just in words, but words are used for expressing the understanding, right?
Mm.
So I think we basically need to somewhere acknowledge this particular aspect. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. So we have some more time. Sorry, Kuhu, I really spoke too much. I mean, that's
No,
my
no, Bhaiya,
problem,
not
really.
at all. It was very insightful. Not at all.
I also
So,
wanted to, I was remembering an incident to do with Jeevan and what you were narrating, Kuhu, about you kind of suddenly. So I remember one such incident that happened with me in my search for something more. I've had similar this thing, no great. I've lived comfortably and I have had no trauma in my life, but yet there was some kind of vacuum that I felt that pushed me towards seeking. So before I came to Darshan, I was exploring and went into the realm of the traditional way of doing some things. And one phase was where I was a lot into spirit work. And some one of those persons I was working with, they told me that you have three spirits attached to you, and you got to do this ritual and that ritual. And I did all that, and it wasn't just so. In my imagination, I could see that two were going away, but one was really stuck, and I was just getting too this thing with it, and I thought, okay, now I need to go to Baba, and Baba must tell me something because I had heard that वो नब्स पकड़ के पहचान लेते हैं कि आप में भूत चिपका है कि नहीं चिपका. Sorry, I'm speaking in Hindi. Because I had heard that Baba would kind of take the pulse of a person and is able to tell whether you have spirits occupying you or not. So I went to Baba and he held my my pulse, and he said, there is no bhoot in you, there's no ghost in you. So, and then he said that what is a bhoot? He asked me a question. He said, when you are with your friends and when you are with people, do you allow, what kind of friends do you have? I said, good friends you have. He said, and when you meet bad people, when you come across people who are not so good, what do you do? I said, I don't get attracted to them. I kind of stay away. So he said, then what is the difference? What are you scared of? Bhoot, what you're calling bhoot or ghost, is nothing but a being without the body. Without your permission, it cannot occupy you. When he said that it suddenly became absolutely clear. All fear went away. And not just that, it kind of shifted something so big within me after that this clarity about body and Jeevan started coming. Of course, it's become more intense now. But for me, it was that point where it was very clear. So, yeah, when you were speaking about it, I remembered this incident with me.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
yeah, and I like that example that you took about the driver and the car. Okay, so I remember Babaji also taking this example in which he says that Jivan is like a driver and car is like the body. The problem is happens when the driver actually starts calling himself as car. Okay, driver identifies himself with the car. Okay, driver is actually a driver of the car, not the car. Okay, so if a car is getting a scratch, why is the driver really getting so worked up? It is just some repair that it needs to be done, right? Car is a just a way of getting from one point to the other, right? So very good analogy it is. I'm sure that every analogy has its limitation, but this is a good one. Yeah.
Mm.
So anyone else? Surendrapal Bhaiya, anything you would like to say?
Maybe yeah, it's good going. It was good listening to Kuhu Beta as well. Just like the Spencer and Beta. So wonderful.
Very nice.
Yes.
Kevin, anything would you like to say?
And no, Kuhu did make it very lively, and it was very nice to listen to her. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so if there is no other question, maybe we can close today's session a little early and meet again on the Wednesday when Kuhu does the next part of our session. It has been really enjoyable. All of us are bringing a lot of energy and our perspective to it, and it's really a heartwarming session. Thank you so much, Kuhu.
Thank you, Bhaiya. And I must mention that you guys putting so much effort into translating this has actually, I mean, of course, it's not simple putting something so like intense and deep and so jargon heavy into another language. And it's actually something that's quite easily understood by even a layman. So I mean, it really has made things easier for me to understand also, even after I've read it in Hindi. So thank you so much to all of you for putting in all the efforts that you are.
Thank you indeed. Okay. ठीक है जी. So
Thank you.
namaste.
Thank you,
Thank you.
We'll
everyone.
meet
Yes.
Thank
again.
you all.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.